So my reflection today is titled The Yoke of Oppression. 2020 will go down in history as the year of the Great Awakening, and it will be remembered hopefully as a powerful collective transformation. Over the past several weeks, I have been shaken to my core on several occasions. When I heard the voice of George Floyd say, "I can't breathe." When I listened to the anguished voices of loved ones who witnessed wellness checks turn violent. And when I heard the report of nooses hanging in a NASCAR garage and on construction sites in Toronto. The world has been forced to begin to look with new eyes and to begin to listen with new ears. Black, Indigenous, and people of color have been telling us for decades of their painful struggle with persistent systemic and institutional racism that sets up huge disparities and barriers to success. Black lives matter. The United Church of Canada's statement on anti-Black racism was passed on June the 12th of this year by the Assembly of Elders, our regional council's executive. It has made a commitment to raising our voices in dismantling anti-Black racism and racial violence. And they've stated, we will not be silent. And it clearly states that anti-Black racism is present in our society and in our church. But it was the quote from Reverend Michael Blair, who is the executive minister for Church and Mission in the National Church, that made me sit up and pay attention. He said, "I need you to know that George Floyd's cry, 'I can't breathe,' is a daily reality for many Black folks. It's important, yes, to be angry at the physical violence of a knee to the neck. But know that your silence at the systematic and unending racism that Black folks experience daily is in itself an act of the knee to the neck." So it behooves us to ask ourselves what implications this statement has for each of us personally, but also collectively as a church. In her video, Implicit Bias, Melanie Funches challenges us, but assures us that there is hope, that what has been done can be undone, and that if we do our own personal work, there is the capacity for growth and change. So I've made a personal commitment to participate in an ongoing anti-racism study group, and I'm currently reading White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo for an upcoming book study. There's much to learn. It is uncomfortable, and so it should be. But I'm learning much about systemic racism, white privilege, and how to have conversations about race. I've watched Amish farmers outside of Beaverton plowing their fields with 2 oxen yoked together, walking side by side, working as a team. We know that in our communities of faith, when we let our church family wear a yoke with us to bear the burdens of daily life and struggles that are almost impossible to carry alone. And yet our church history has stories of many people who have been marginalized and excluded, who have no one to wear a yoke with, and they are tired of carrying the burdens alone. 112 years ago, Union United Church in Montreal was founded by Afro-Canadian railway porters because they were blatantly not welcome in white churches. Google Union United Church in Montreal. It has a very interesting history. And today it has become a vibrant United Church congregation that welcomes people from many different places, especially several Caribbean islands and Africa. It celebrates their cultures and provides outreach services to communities that still face racism. The November 2018 issue of the United Church Observer magazine had a cover story by Magoli Samba titled Wilbur Howard and the White Church. Wilbur Howard was elected the United Church's first and only black moderator, and that was in 1974. He was a graduate of Emmanuel College in Toronto, and yet he was unable to secure a settlement despite there being a national shortage of ministers. Like other graduating ministry students, his name was sent to his home presbytery, which was responsible for finding him a congregation. But he was never placed by Toronto's Presbytery Settlement Committee, and there are no records of discussion or action regarding the matter. All that remains are lists of ministers left without a charge, on which Howard's name repeatedly appears. And despite the fact that Howard's experiences took place over 4 decades ago, black clergy in the United Church of Canada still deal with their own forms of racism today. The difference now is that they are speaking up about it. The disheartening truth was revealed in a recent video and an online worship service done by members of the Black Clergy Network of the United Church of Canada. One minister stated, "I didn't even know I was black until I came to this country. Canada, a country I thought was welcoming, a country of acceptance." Another stated, quite sadly, "I hope for the day that I will be seen, heard, affirmed." And a female black minister lamented, "I was promised that my burden would be light and the yoke would be easy." Reverend Larry Doyle of Faith United Church in Curtis responded with, "These are friends and colleagues, not strangers or others. Their stories speak of hurt, exclusion, devaluing, and othering. A better future is possible." Some of you may have watched or been present as Reverend Paul Douglas Wolfel delivered a sobering address to commissioners at the General Council meeting in Oshawa in 2017. He was an intercultural observer at the General Council, and in his address he stated that he felt invisible because he had yet to hear in the council an acknowledgement that racism exists in our church and that the experiences of racism felt by every black person within the United Church of Canada are real. His speech opened the floodgates as dozens of commissioners came forward with their own experiences of not only racism, but also discrimination and ableism in the United Church. The audience listened respectfully, though some were visibly uncomfortable, for the meeting went overtime with the 2-hour session of truth-telling. Sadly, black ministers have no shortage of examples of racism and microaggressions that they can share. There are stories of Black ministers whose handshakes are refused and whose white predecessors are regularly invited to events instead of them. Others ask, what do you fear? What do you hate about me when you don't even know me? We should not be surprised at their anger and deep sadness. And while many of us want to believe that we've come a long way since Wilbur Howard's time, we have to ask ourselves, where do we go from here? May I suggest that we begin by listening with the ears of our hearts. And I recommend watching the video and the worship service led by the Black Clergy Network of our church, both of which can be found on YouTube. In our commitment to be a more inclusive church, may our work see that walls that have discounted and bypassed unique and diverse people begin to be dismantled. May our fear of others dissolve into trust. And may our arrogance be tempered with humility and compassion. May it be so. Amen. Our closing hymn is number 664, What a Friend We Have in Jesus.